Brazil, Latin America's largest economy, is forecasted to face the worst recession in over 100 years. And proof of it is that the Rio de Janeiro stadium that is going to host the athletics during the Olympics has just been shut down of water and electricity over unpaid bills. And this situation, the João Havelange Stadium, is a twofold problem. One is the economic reality of the country, and the other, a conflict in between the Botafogo, one of the most famous soccer teams in Rio de Janeiro, that play in that stadium, that they think that the government should be paying the bills because the stadium is going to be used by the Olympics moving forward. So they decided not to pay the bill. The government didn't pay the bill. The water and electricity got shut off. We were 6 months away from the Olympics, Nick. This is not the only failure in infrastructure. We've been reporting about the type of infrastructure work that they've been doing that is just going to benefit a few tourists that go to the Olympics. It's not going to benefit the citizens. Dilma Rousseff is facing the worst acceptance rate in history, maybe, of the country. 8% of the people of Brazil support Dilma Rousseff. And we see that the path to the Olympics has been a really, really painful one for Brazil.
Right, and some of that infrastructure that doesn't benefit the people, I'm sure you're talking about, I mean, there's a lot of them, but one huge example is, the railway that's going from basically, quite literally, the airport to basically the city center where all of this Olympics stuff is going to go on. So basically, no one does that route on their everyday commute, right? Going from that city center in that one point where all like the Olympic stadiums will be to the airport. No one's going to use that, and that's so much money being invested in that could have gone to the everyday normal person in Brazil. So that in itself is very sad, but I'm sure we're going to get into it. The list goes on and on and on.
The problem, at the heart of the problem, is this situation. The government can't afford to have Olympics. That's the reality. The government is facing one of the worst corruption accusations in history, where they are accusing many of those in power of receiving kickbacks involved with the national oil company, Petrobras. It was a very reported case where Dilma Rousseff was the beginning of the end. Now she is facing impeachment of, out of how much people in Brazil got upset about realizing that what was supposed to be the example in Latin America of growth, when Lula da Silva was the president of Brazil, it was the golden child of Latin America. The growth of the country was incredible. Less than 10 years later, we see the disaster. We see that for 4 years in a row, they've been shrinking. The economy has been shrinking. The policymakers are struggling to control how fast inflation is affecting the citizens. But on top of that, we have several problems. We have the Olympics coming very, very soon, and problems with infrastructure. We have the aquatic sports being held in places where if you take one drop of water, you will get sick. Yeah. Then we see that the stadiums are getting their light and water shut off. On top of that, we have the environmental disasters that are happening in Brazil, like the one you reported, the mine that is spewing all of this toxic mud in Minas Gerais, and recently the Zika virus epidemic that is happening in Brazil. 1.5 million people affected by this. The mosquito season, which transmit the disease, is about to happen in the lead up to the Olympics, and yet we see that Brazil was not happy only with the struggle of the World Cup, and now they repeat it with the Olympics.
Jose, but okay, so some of this could be attributed to bad luck, for example, but a lot of it is because of bad lack of responsibility here. Now you mentioned the thing that I reported on, the Minas Gerais, the mining disaster that literally is taking out entire villages because of this toxic mine that's spewing out all this waste. It's mixing with the water. People can't drink the water. It's killing wildlife on an unprecedented rate. Now that, for example, could be seen as, some freak accident, but at the same time, that ties in with those kickbacks that you're talking about. Correct. I mean, do you think the necessary safety precautions were put in place? No, they weren't. Do you think the permits would have been put in place in the first place if someone didn't, fork over some dough? I don't think so. So it's all tied in, and you can't just blame it on, it's bad timing. We're at a time when, there's environmental catastrophes as well as all these things going on. Nah, it all ties in, and it's, it's bad times. And, they're not the only country that makes huge sacrifices for their own people and others. Look at the upcoming World Cup in the UAE. I mean, the same exact thing. They know that they're basically going to have to lose a lot of workers. Thousands of people are dying. They're basically treating them like slaves, but they're like, hey, we got to go on with
We
it.
gotta go on with it. And I think you bring attention to a very important point. The level of corruption in Latin America, but also in this case specifically in Brazil, is so high that this culture of kickbacks has allowed for many disasters to happen, to bad planning to go ahead. Just an example, if you think about now that we're talking sports, if we go back to the indictment that the Department of Justice did on several executives from FIFA, half of them came from South America, in between FIFA executives and sports marketing executives that were accused exactly of what you're talking about, kickbacks. The culture of kickbacks has sunk in many countries in Latin America in this level of recession. Brazil, in this case, is forecast to shrink its economy by 3%. Some serious numbers when you look at them. And now we have to wait. What is the future of Brazil, the largest economy in Latin America?